Alright folks, what we have here is the TinySA, as you can see. What we got going into it is a 440 megahertz signal with a 0 dBm power level, and if we look there, it's telling me it's 0.02 dBm. So when you're using the TinySA Ultra, in this case, to measure power, you're going to need to have attenuators. So if you have a 100-watt transceiver and you want to use the TinySA to measure power, you're going to need to find a 50 dB attenuator that's rated for 100 watts. And you want the signal going into the TinySA to be around 0 dBm. Why is that? One, if you go any higher, you start putting the amplifiers in the TinySA in compression, and you may start measuring harmonics that are not a symptom of your transceiver, but are a symptom of the amplifiers in the TinySA. So as a rule of thumb, you want to make sure the power going into the TinySA is not greater than 0 dBm. I can make the signal be minus 50 dBm. And as you can see, the TinySA is extremely sensitive, and it's able to see that power level. So it works for very weak signals. But when you get up to 0 dBm, the instrument does a very nice job in auto scaling, but you do not want to go much stronger than 0 dBm. So if you have a 100-watt transceiver, before you plug it into the TinySA, you need 50 dBm attenuation, and those attenuators better be rated for 100 watts. Here is an example of a proper attenuator. This is a NARDA attenuator, 20 dB, and it's rated for 150 watts, and it can work from DC to 1 gigahertz. So this is the type of attenuators you need to be thinking about when you're going to be working with 100 watts. And just to show you, here it is. It's got quite the nice heat sink. So you want to see something like this. This is rated for high power or 100 watts. Here is another attenuator. This is rated for 100 watts and is 40 dB. So this is also a very nice attenuator when you're trying to measure power. This is the kind of attenuators you're going to need before you just hook 100 watts up to a spectrum analyzer. If you hook the 100 watts directly to the spectrum analyzer, well, you have just blown up the spectrum analyzer. Good job! If you see attenuators that look like this, these little things are rated for no more than 1 watt. So if you try to put 50 or 100 watts through these little things, they will smoke, catch fire, and melt. So your signal, if it's less than 1 watt, then these little things are fine. But when you go greater than 1 watt, the attenuators that I showed at the beginning are what you need. So you always need to check the rating of the attenuator. Don't just assume that a 50 dB attenuator can handle any type of power. So hopefully that's been a quick lesson today for Moonshine Radio. And this is the TinySA Ultra, a very cheap spectrum analyzer, and does a very decent job in measuring power. But as stated earlier, you want to keep the power under 0 dBm. As long as you keep the input power into the input less than 0 dBm, you will get accurate measurements and you will be able to accurately measure the harmonics of that signal. Thanks for watching Moonshine Radio.